Hi, and welcome to this live reading from The Scottish Play by Phoebe Alexander. And this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Molly. But they all sucked. I ran my fingers through my cotton candy pink hair in frustration. And not in a good way. Jason let out a little chuckle, and I shot him an appreciative nod. Thank you. At least someone is listening to me. I blew out a breathy sigh of frustration as I looked down at my audition notes, making little check marks by the actors I thought might work for speaking parts. We're all listening to you, Poe, my girlfriend, assured me. She smirked at her brother, who was the only one to laugh at my not sucking in a good way joke. You're practically shouting. Half of Bloomington is listening to you, Malls. Jason's girlfriend, Cinda, stood up. Anyone want something from the kitchen? My wine glass is empty. She pouted and looked down at the empty glass, shaking it a little as if we needed proof. Hey, Molly, maybe you should drink a glass or 3. Poe rolled her eyes. She was getting sick of hearing about my play. The rest of the polycule was too. I had no doubt. Look, I'm sorry I keep babbling on and on about this, but just think, guys, once we strike the set for this production, that's it. I'm finished. I'll be the proud owner of a Master of Fine Arts degree. And we're all very proud of you, Cinda announced from the kitchen as she stood pouring wine into 2 glasses. She carried them both into the living room where we were gathered and handed me one. Here, have a drink, sweetie. Have 3, Poe chimed in with her smirk. Her cat, Sagan, jumped onto her lap and she stroked down his long ginger-colored fur. You've been working on this degree for 2 years now. Cinda sat down on the ottoman, took a sip of her wine, and licked her full lips. You're in the home stretch. You know we're here for you no matter what. And for the record, this production won't be the end of it, Poe pointed out. It might be the end of your grad school career, but you'll be doing plenty of other productions in the future, won't you? Well, I sure hope so, I sighed again, and took a well-deserved sip of the Moscato Cinda had generously poured for me. At least I know one play I wrote will get produced. There's no guarantee for any I write after this. Cinda set her wine glass down and spread her hands as if framing a picture. I can see it now. A marquee all lit up with the name Molly Rose. It's on Broadway, or maybe it's in Chicago. How does that sound? Thank you for always being so supportive, I smiled at the matriarch of our group. Poe and I moved in with Cinda and Jason about 6 months ago when my rent went up so much I couldn't afford it anymore. Poe was between jobs at the time, and I was a poor grad student who occasionally taught acting workshops for kids at the local community theater. Poe's older brother, Jason, and his girlfriend, Cinda, who was several years older than him, let us move into their 3-bedroom house on the west side of Bloomington. So Cinda became the mother hen of our new little family, some of us related by blood, some of us bonded by love. So question for you. Can you only cast undergrad and theater majors? Poe scratched her chin and looked up at me, and the wheels in her mind obviously turning. She was the type of person who loved to solve problems rather than just dwell on how wrong things were going. It was a miracle we got along, to be honest. I could certainly be a dweller. I can cast whoever I want as long as they're okay with not getting paid. It's almost always undergrad theater majors who audition, though sometimes first-year MFA acting students will just to get a show under their belts. Anything to pad their resumes, you know. I sighed, what was likely my 100th sigh of the day. I'm sure things will be okay. I might be acting a bit overdramatic. Overdramatic? Poe threw her hands up in the air. You don't say. Everyone laughed. Well, I did have a flair for the dramatic, but I was a freaking theater geek through and through. I'd basically come out of the womb reciting, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. And then, like my hero Shakespeare, I grew up to be a playwright. It's really the male lead I'm having trouble with. Looking down at the audition notes, I shook my head. Couldn't see any of the people who auditioned playing the part of Hamish McGregor. Tell us again what you're looking for, Jason leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Maybe I know a guy? Well, the character is Scottish, hence the name of the play, Scot-Free. And he's been falsely convicted of murdering his cousin. He escapes from prison and is hiding out in the woods when he meets the main female character, Ruth, who happens to be an attorney. That's some pretty damn good luck. Bo shook her head, chuckling. She'd only heard the plot of this play, not to mention every single line, approximately 4 billion times. I did feel for her. Yes, she could be painfully sarcastic at times, but she was also a saint for putting up with me. Her sarcasm must have been my penance. Yeah, I mean, he's lucky for meeting her, but he was also framed for murder, so not lucky, generally speaking. I shrugged. Anyway, he's big and gruff and doesn't want her help at first, but he has no choice. He ends up showing his vulnerable side. They fall in love. She tracks down the evidence and gets him off the charges, I mean. Right, the other three said in unison. Should have expected that from this crew. And everyone lives happily ever after, I finished. Except the playwright, casting director, executive director, and producer, who all happen to be me. Poe grabbed the notebook out of my hands and skimmed my notes. Sagan jumped off her lap, deeply offended that she'd moved. His tail twitched when he hit the floor. So, none of these guys looks like a hulking Scotsman? That would be a no. Most of them are gangly 18 and 19-year-olds who barely need to shave. Right. Poe bit her bottom lip, the way she often did when she was thinking. Then she looked up at me with her crooked grin, her hazel eyes twinkling. I believe I have an answer to your dilemma. You do? Like I said, she was a problem solver. Do tell, Jason piped up, his eyes settling on the matching set belonging to his sister. Poe turned her attention back to us after she watched Sagan saunter down the hallway. Remember when I told you the greenhouse in the biology building is undergoing some renovation? They didn't hire a construction company to do the work. They are handling it in-house. Well, the facilities guy in charge of it is Scottish. My spine immediately straightened from its formerly slumped posture. Someone who's already on campus? Tell me more. Well, I don't really know him or anything. I've just been in the greenhouse a few times to see the progress. They're building this cool new fountain in the middle of the space. Anyway, I'm pretty sure he's Scottish. Cinda drained her second glass of wine. What's he look like? Well, he's tall, broad, like a beefy lumberjack kind of guy. Big arms, big legs. He's got reddish-brown hair. He definitely has an accent. And his name is Lachlan. I read it on his shirt. His shirt? My eyebrows arched. Yeah, the facilities guys have their names embroidered on their uniform shirts, Poe explained. But you don't know if he has any acting experience? I stood up, pacing back and forth behind the sofa as I considered this development. If he looks the part and has the accent, how hard can the acting part be? Jason interjected. I stopped pacing and shot him a glare. He was always trying to rile me up, almost like he was my big brother instead of Poe's, but I wasn't taking the bait. Instead, I wrung my hands as I remembered the half-dozen undergrads who'd auditioned for the role of Hamish McGregor, and how no amount of acting experience could transform any of them into a hulking Scottish beast. I turned to Poe. Do you think you could, casually ask him if he'd have any interest in playing the leading role in a grad student's thesis project, which would require hours of his time for absolutely zero pay? Yeah, it sounds pretty ridiculous when you say it like that, doesn't it? My girlfriend shrugged. I mean, I can try. I wouldn't have brought it up if I didn't think it was worth a shot. You can be very persuasive. Cinda leaned over to pat Poe on the back. I started pacing again. You're right, it's worth a shot. Because right now I've got no clue how I'm going to pull this off, and I only have 4 weeks. We need to start rehearsals immediately. Poe walked over to me and swept me into her arms, planting a kiss on my forehead. Easy for her, because I was barely 5 feet tall and she towered over me at 5 feet 8. I wrapped my arms around her and laid my head on her chest, feeling the solid thump of her heart under my ear. I was a lucky woman to have her in my life, and to have her brother and his girlfriend too was a nice bonus. Living in a polycule was the best decision I'd ever made. Hey, I gotta go, Poe reminded me, pulling out of her embrace. Delaney and I are going to see the 8 o'clock showing of Midnight Killer. Cinda's friend Delaney and Poe had hit it off, and they had started to date. We had an open relationship and both considered ourselves to be polyamorous, so I was cool with it. Besides, I hated horror movies, and Poe and Delaney both loved them. Weirdos that they were. So they had that to bond over. You'll talk to this Lachlan character tomorrow? I followed her into our bedroom as she stripped off her shirt. She was apparently changing into a different outfit for her date. Sagan jumped up on the bed to ogle her. It was a pervy cat. He stood there just as pervy as the cat, zeroing in on her athletic figure, and for a brief second I forgot I had asked her a question. Hey, she stepped over to me, snapping her fingers in my face. What's your deal? I said I would talk to him. Sorry, I got mesmerized by your tits. I reached out and stroked a finger across her sports bra, then poked it in her cleavage, enjoying the feel of her soft skin. Molly, I need to go, sweetheart. I'm running late. She laughed as she stepped out of the way and held up 2 shirts from her closet. Gray or black. She had a fairly monotone wardrobe. I enjoyed bright colors, hence the pink hair. Gray? I shrugged. No, black. Contrast with your hair. She had shoulder-length honey brown hair and gorgeous hazel eyes with thick lashes that required absolutely zero eye makeup. I was jealous. I had to paint my reddish blonde lashes with a zillion coats of mascara to get any length or volume. I figured you'd say that. She leaned over and pecked me on the cheek before she pulled the black V-neck shirt over her head. You sure you're okay with me going out tonight? I know you're upset the auditions didn't go as planned. Yes, I'm fine. I'm gonna watch the video I shot at auditions and take some more notes. I'll probably be up late. Need to get this cast list out ASAP so we can start practices. We only have the theater for 4 weeks, you know. There is no time to spare. I realize this Lachlan guy is a total long shot, but I know you can work your magic on him. She scoffed. What magic? You know I'm not going to flirt with him. She rolled her eyes. But you can if you want. No thanks. I'm into girls. I fluttered my eyelashes at her. Especially girls like you. I pulled her close to brush my lips against hers. Knock 'em dead tonight, babe. Her eyes sparkled as the tiniest smile curled her lips. Thank you, beautiful. It won't be too late. She headed out, and I went back to the living room where I'd left my notebook and phone. Cinda and Jason were getting comfy on the sofa, about to watch another episode of Only Murders in the Building. If only I could cast my play half as well as that series was cast. Have fun, you guys, I called down the hall as I returned to my room to review the audition footage. The cat gave me the stink eye when I plopped down next to him. So, Sagan, do you have any acting experience? Lachlan. I was tightening the last bolt in the new water feature while we were building in the biology building's greenhouse when I heard a throat clearing behind me. I turned around to see an average-sized female with brown hair and a face like a pixie. This area is closed right now, ma'am. I tossed over my shoulder, my words little more than a series of grunts. I was not exactly known for my people skills. Hey now, she chucked her hair behind her ear, but I need to talk to you. I set down my wrench and turned around to face her. What can I do for you? I struggled to put a neutral expression on my face, as dealing with people was not my favorite pastime. It wasn't my favorite present time or future time either. You're Scottish, right? She looked at me through piercing eyes that felt like they were staring right through me. Lachlan is a Scottish name, isn't it? I'm Lan or Lanny, if I know you, I corrected. Hadn't gone by my full first name since I was a kid, and only if my mother was scolding me for something. In general, my family didn't even call me Lachlan. They had a nickname for me that I'd rather not get into right now. I see, was all she said, but she remained in place, assessing me. I cocked my head and swallowed down my growing frustration. Do you need something? She clenched her hands into fists and firmly planted them on her hips. Then her feet spread like she was preparing to stand her ground. It was weird to see her take such a defensive pose, like she was on the rugby pitch at kickoff. Who the hell was this woman, and why was she in my greenhouse? I just want to know if you're Scottish. She rolled her eyes. Ugh, I lassie you can. I shot back in the brogue. Then I rolled my eyes right back at her. A little smirk appeared at the edges of her mouth, and her fists relaxed at her side. I'm sorry. I should have introduced myself first. I apologize. Go on, then. I tilted my head and stared at her. I'm Poe Davis, bioadmin assistant. It's nice to meet you. Likewise, though nice probably wasn't the term I would use. Now, what can I do for you, Miss Davis? I need to get back to work. Right. She sucked in a deep breath. So, you're going to think this is crazy, but I watched her mouth moving, but I wasn't comprehending any of her words. I was more wondering why female folk were always so enamored with my being Scottish. It dawned on me right then that I hadn't been properly leveraging that advantage all this time I'd been over in the States. It never really occurred to me, but dozens of women had commented on my nationality since I'd started working here at the university. There had to be something useful in it, didn't there? Probably not useful enough to get a green card, but if it got a man laid, well, that would be something, wouldn't it? It had been a while. So what do you think? Her face exploded into a brilliant smile. She ran a finger through her straight shoulder-length hair and waited expectantly for my response. What do I think about what? I scratched the stubble on my chin. About helping a theater grad student out. She handed me a business card. This is her info. She has office hours today from 3 to 5. Do you think you could stop by and chat with her about it? I sighed. Oh, what kind of help does she need? I squinted in confusion at Miss Davis, whose expression immediately twisted in frustration as soon as she heard my question. Weren't you listening to me? She tapped a foot and glared up at me. Of course I was. I wasn't, clearly. I looked down at the card and read Molly Rose, graduate assistant, MFA program, theater department, room 204B. Something about this Miss Davis character rubbed me the wrong way, but I couldn't put my finger on it. She was a secretary. The building secretaries were notorious for gossip and causing issues with the facilities folks like myself. I just smiled and nodded, not wanting to start any type of trouble. Admin assistants and the facilities folks were what kept this campus going. Together we were like MacGyver. This place would surely fall apart if not for us. Sure, I'll head over there when I get off at 4. I waved the card and nodded, hoping that would get rid of her. See that you do, was all that she said. I glanced back down at the business card, and when I looked up, Miss Davis was gone. That was a very strange interaction. I guessed I was going to see this Molly Rose person after work. And I had no idea why.